Therefore, if this is a quality of life issue, the quality of life would pertain to those waiting for the establishment to open, which sounds like there are quite a few. Hence, the quality of life cited should actually be in reference to the consumers, since there appears to be a demand. The second reason for the mayor's veto cited that only one of the many license holders recommended the change. Well, on this past Sunday, when I got out of church, I started to visit all of the liquor stores in the township to see how the store owners felt about the proposed change. However, I opted not to because I recalled the chicken ordinance and remembered that when we discussed the changes not because multiple residents came forward requesting the change. We discussed the ordinance because one person, and we all remember the cute, very articulate little girl that came forward and requested that the ordinance be reviewed. We decided to review that ordinance because of one, not many. The third reason cited for the mayor's veto is because he suggested that the change will promote longer hours of access to an activity the township has chosen to put limitations on. Well, as I mentioned at the previous meeting, the store owner is requesting to open up an hour earlier and not extend the business operation hours on the tail end into the wee hours of the night or extremely early in the morning. In fact, I can actually respect the store owner's request because he came to us with a reasonable request. Keyword reasonable. He did not request that we allow the store to open up at 7 a.m. throughout the week or on Sundays. He merely requested that he be allowed to open up an hour earlier on Sundays. Again, reasonable. The fourth reason cited for the mayor's veto is because the amendment will encourage license holders to function as a distribution licensee rather than a consumption licensee. That is a matter of opinion, but opening up an hour earlier on Sundays will not change the license. The fifth and final reason for the mayor's veto is because he suggested that the township already has longer hours for the operation of licensed establishments than surrounding communities, which is a substantial benefit to all license holders. I'm not sure what allowing a business to open up an hour earlier on Sunday has to do with other communities, but if that is the case, what if other surrounding communities were to extend their alcoholic beverage selling hours by a few hours? Should we do the same? Just a few comments and things to consider. It was mentioned that noon was originally established as a Sunday opening time because of church. Well, I go to church just about every Sunday, and I just don't see how church and liquor stores correlate. The comparison, however, could be made if we were proposing that liquor stores not be open at all on Sunday. If noon was established as a starting time to coordinate with church schedules, it should be considered that all churches start and end at different times. Remember, not everyone frequents bars for alcohol consumption or for purchase. Sometimes it is just to be social and or enjoy bar food. As someone who does not and will not drink and drive, and as someone whose favorite foods just happen to be bar foods, I am a good example. And lastly, for anyone present or for anyone that happens to be reading through the minutes, please encourage those that you know and or come in contact with to not drink and drive. Although I have read my reasons for not supporting the mayor's veto, out of everything that I have said, the most important take-home message I would like to convey is monitor your alcohol intake and never ever drink and drive. It's just not worth it. And not that it means much, but I penned this in less than an hour. Which
Nicely
is
done.
Which is what the store owner actually was requesting. So.
You didn't do it at the bar, did you?
No, I didn't.
Very good.
Is there any other discussion or comments?
I pretty much concur with everything you said there, Jason.
Thank you, Chuck.
Let's put it in a nutshell.
Is there a motion to approve resolution number 202-2016?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Amy, please pull the council.
Mr. Tompkins?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Trueblood?
No.
Mr. Cordier?
No.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
It did require a
4.
2/3.
Yes. Thank you for letting us know that in advance. Ordinances for second reading and/or public hearing. Ordinance number 17-2016, an ordinance of the Township of Pemberton authorizing the acquisition of the property located at Block 553, Lot 50, commonly known as 46 Juliustown Road by negotiated purchase or eminent domain in an amount not to exceed fair market value pursuant to a professional appraisal. This portion of the meeting is now open to the public. This portion of the meeting is now closed to the public. I see someone's hand. Were you coming forward for? No. This portion of the meeting is now closed to the public. Council, is there any discussion? Hearing none, is there a motion to adopt ordinance number 17-2016?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Amy, please poll the council.
Mr. Cartier?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Tompkins?
No.
Ms. Trueblood?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Ordinance number 18-2016, an ordinance of the Township of Pemberton authorizing the acquisition of the property located at Block 553, Lot 1, commonly known as 16 Market Street, by negotiated purchase or eminent domain. This portion of the meeting is now open to the public. This portion of the meeting is now closed to the public. Council, is there any discussion? If not, is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second. Ordinance number 18, 2016.
Amy, please poll the council.
Mr. Cartier?
Yes.
Ms. Trueblood?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Tompkins?
No.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Moving on, unfinished business. We have discussion and possible introduction of an ordinance banning the sale of puppy mill animals. Our clerk informed us that we have someone that will be coming today to inform us.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
My name is Brian Hackett. I'm the New Jersey State Director with the Humane Society of the United States. And I understand that one of our partner advocates in the last month or so has been in contact with the council about this potential ordinance prohibiting the sale of puppy mill animals in your town. And I'm not sure if you've received a model sample ordinance that other towns have used
We have.
and based on.
There's been, the council has discussed it the last two meetings, but they had some questions.
Right, right. So I'm looking forward to addressing those. Just if you give me one quick moment, just to give you a quick background. The Humane Society of the United States in New Jersey has been pursuing on the state level a law called S-63, which has passed the New Jersey Senate by an overwhelming majority, 27-8, bipartisan, to really try to deal with this issue of puppy mill animals being trafficked into New Jersey and primarily sold through the internet and pet stores. So on a local level and on a county level in New Jersey, 8 counties, including Burlington, have passed resolutions supporting these types of ordinances. And I believe with Pemberton Township last night, I think we're at about 70 municipalities that have, in just the last year or so, have passed these types of ordinances. So with that, I welcome any questions you may have. I did read through some of the notes from your last meeting, and I did notice some questions. So if you'd like to address them to me, I'd like that.
Primarily, I'm the one that's been questioning.
Yes.
My biggest concern is it's saying that the only authorized sellers to business or to animal stores are rescue operations or what was the second one?
It's an animal care facility.
Animal care facility. Now, there's got to be more than just puppy mills out there selling legitimate puppies.
Right.
So you're excluding all of them from that model ordinance.
What the ordinance really seeks to do, it's very proactive in nature. So it specifically discusses physical pet store locations. And the reason for that is, as we've seen in New Jersey, there's been the situation of Just Pups in East Brunswick and Paramus, where this gentleman, if I can call him a gentleman, had a store in Paramus in East Brunswick where there were 67 dogs from a puppy mill transported from Missouri in a van that the Paramus police found. Paramus revoked his license. East Brunswick revoked his license. There were 3 dead animals in a freezer. And so it's a proactive approach to prevent bad actors like that person from coming into your town. Now, the ordinance does not affect responsible breeders, home-based situations.
I disagree, because the ordinance specifically states rescue operations and animal care facilities.
For pet store sourcing.
Right. Well, it does prohibit legitimate breeders.
Well, no legitimate breeder sells their animals to a pet store. So the problem...
So every pet store out here that sells animals is getting them from a puppy mill and not a legitimate breeder.
If you've reviewed our investigative report of all of our state's pet stores, you would find egregious violations.
Then why are they being allowed to continue operation?
Well, that's what the state is trying to address with
Well,
S63.
The state passed a statute eliminating puppy stores.
Well, S63 encourages municipalities to take further action with ordinance such as this.
What does it bar? What is the purpose of that?
What S63 on the state level would do, the main component of the bill, is 3 strikes and you're out for pet stores. So pet stores are not supposed to be sourcing from non-USDA licensed commercial breeders. If they're...
Well, why can't we add that into the ordinance?
Well, you don't need to. I think the issue with the ordinance is it's specific in scope to just pet store locations. So whether it's the local ordinance or it's the state law, responsible breeders are not affected, because if someone wants to purchase an animal from a breeder, they can go to that responsible breeder who would encourage you to have a face-to-face sale, come meet the animal, come to their operation, meet the breeding parents. You don't get that opportunity in a pet store, because pet stores primarily source from puppy mills. And so puppy mill operation is when they import these animals from these mass breeding factories. They're often misbred, overbred. They're often, because of that, have behavioral problems. They have health problems. And these are the animals that are being put on consumers through pet stores. So these ordinances are looking to say, if there are pet stores that want to open in town, which it is a dying business model, because people are sourcing on Pet Finder, from rescues and shelters. If you go into any Petco or PetSmart anywhere in the country, the animals in there, they haven't sold a cat or dog since 1994.
Can I ask? I want to stop you before I forget.
Yes, sir.
You had said something, and forgive me, USDA, they have to be certified to sell to a pet store?
That's what the state bill says.
So if I'm forgive me if my acronyms are wrong, if I'm breeding German Shepherds and they're all AKA registered, American Kennel Association registered, and they have all the documentation and stuff, I can't sell that to a pet store? Is that the way the law is?
Well,
even though they're certified and documented through...
AKC, we don't need to get into, that's a whole other separate issue. It's really...
Well, that's my question, though. If I'm a home breeder and I have that paper, though, that proves I'm not a puppy mill operation.
Right, but the pet stores source from puppy mills. So this is where, whether it's the state law or the ordinance, a responsible breeder would not be affected by any of these measures. Because the New Jersey Association of Dog Clubs, they specifically state on their website that we do not recommend buying a dog from a pet store, because there's a network of responsible breeders which the Humane Society of the United States works with, that have animals for people to purchase in a manner that a responsible breeder would employ. And that's a certain model of meeting the animal, being a face-to-face sale. Purchasing an animal over the internet or purchasing an animal in a pet store, those are from puppy mills. That's not a face-to-face sale. So this type of ordinance, based on the model ordinance that other towns have used that we offer to towns, it of course has to be drafted in the context of your local codes, but the crux of it is to prevent bad actors from coming into the town like a Vincent Lasacco, who brings in puppies from Missouri in a mass puppy mill operation and is pawning that off to unsuspecting consumers.
Okay, I have a question. You've mentioned responsible breeder quite a few times.
Mm-hmm.
What is the definition of a responsible breeder? How do you guys know a responsible breeder?
There are hundreds of responsible breeders in New Jersey.
What's the definition of it?
The definition of responsible breeder is, one, they're not a puppy mill. So a puppy mill is a mass breeding operation. We're not talking, a person who in their backyard has 1 or 2 litters a year, who sells those dogs to their neighbors or somewhere in town. We're talking about, if you go to these puppy mills in Pennsylvania, Missouri, Arkansas, it's like a chicken. It's like a Purdue chicken factory farm.
Right, I understand that, but what is the definition of a responsible breeder?
A responsible breeder is largely defined by the methods at which they interact with the consumer for that animal. So if you're looking to purchase an animal and you choose not to go through a rescue or a shelter, that's your right to do. If you want to purchase from a responsible breeder, HSUS publishes this information for people.
Who does?
It's HSUS, Humane Society
HSUS.
of the United States. We encourage consumers that if you're going to purchase an animal and the person that you're looking to purchase it from doesn't want you to know where it came from, which is why the disclosure law for pet stores passed last year in the state, then that's not a responsible breeder. A responsible breeder is going to encourage you to come to their home if they're a home-based breeder. A responsible breeder is going to say, meet the animal, it's a face-to-face sale, they're not going to sell over the internet, they're not going to hide the breeding parents from you. So it's really all about transparency for the consumer, and as our investigative report showed, and other groups have corroborated, pet stores across New Jersey are not following the rules. They're sourcing from these puppy mills. There's egregious violations. There's one store, they have 40 breeders they source from. 20 of them have such egregious violations that if the law were already in place, that their license would be revoked.
What is the the Assembly hasn't adopted yet hasn't adopted yet the Senate Bill 63?
The bill is before the Assembly currently because it's passed the Senate.
Is there any
already.
indication that's going to pass and or that the governor has an interest in signing it?
We believe it's going to pass the Assembly based on the overwhelming majority in the Senate. It's going to be passed out of committee probably sometime next month. And the governor, we think, is going to be inclined to sign it because it's an extension and strengthening of the Pet Purchase Protection Act, which was passed last year, which gets to Ms. Jackson's question regarding responsible breeders. What's a responsible breeder?
What is that statute called? The Pet?
It's the Pet Purchase Protection Act. And that dealt with pet store disclosure, that pet stores had to disclose to the consumer where the animal is coming from. There had to be cage cards of the source. But we found that pet stores are not following that disclosure, and the consumers are in the dark because the $500 fine that's levied for violations, they're making more than that in profit on a puppy mill dog they're selling, so they're just not following the law. So that's why on the state level S63 is needed, which in that bill, it encourages towns to go further by just straight out restricting the sale of puppy mill dogs in your town. And that's what HSUS and our advocates are asking of Pemberton, and we're asking of towns all across New Jersey. Burlington County, as I mentioned, passed a resolution supporting these measures. Other towns have done it. And we're seeing it across the board. I mean, whether it's Ocean County, Middlesex County, Camden County, It's across party lines, it's across the spectrum, and there's a lot of support for it.
Do local breeder, I think really the question here is, do local breeders have the opportunity, or is it they could sell to pet stores, I would imagine? You're just saying that's just not a normal business model? If you're a local breeder, usually they sell them from their property versus selling them to pet stores. Theoretically, it sounds possible.
Right, it's possible, but it's very, very uncommon for a hobby breeder or a responsible breeder to sell to a pet store, because that's their animals that they're breeding. That's their business that they want. It's in their business interest to have a direct interaction with the consumer as a responsible breeder. But a pet store, they're making money in volume because they're sourcing from puppy mills, which are mass breeding these dogs, overbreeding the parents to death, and then they get put in a van, 67 of them, shipped into New Jersey, and then an unsuspecting consumer walks into a pet store and sees this cute little puppy. They don't know the history or the background. They get the puppy. When I was discussing this with the Hamilton Council in Mercer County, the day I was meeting with the Hamilton Council, my friend called me who got a dog from an Amish puppy mill in Pennsylvania, and he says, "Brian, do you know of a local shelter or a county shelter that I can drop this dog off at that won't euthanize it?" And I said, "So let me get this right. You are irresponsible, you purchase a puppy mill dog, and now you want to pawn that dog off on a taxpayer-funded shelter that's just going to euthanize it." So this indirectly is a taxpayer issue as well, because whether you run a municipal shelter or your tax dollars on a county tax levy support the Burlington County shelter, people are dropping these puppy mill dogs off. I don't have statistics, but from anecdotes I can tell you it happens often that people get these sick dogs and there's not recourse. That's the other factor. A responsible breeder will take a dog back and refund you your money. Pet stores, good luck doing that at a pet store that just says, "We'll get them from a puppy mill and here you go." So this type of ordinance, we've seen it across the state. We're averaging 2 towns per week with this ordinance. And Eatontown also passed it, as Mr. Bear knows. And so we really think it's a common sense measure. It's a proactive measure, because this would prevent a bad actor from coming in one of your strip malls, opening up a store and setting up shop as Just Pups or something like that. And he is looking to expand, ironically. He's been shut down in 3 towns, but he's still looking to expand, even though he's going to end up losing his license because of all the cruelty violations he has against him. But do we really want someone like that coming into Pemberton and opening up a pet store and importing abused, sick, mistreated animals into your town, when people in your town can go to a Petco or a PetSmart, they can go on Pet Finder, get from a rescue or a shelter, or they can seek out a responsible breeder and purchase an animal of their choosing. So we really think this is a common sense measure. From a business perspective, of the 25 largest pet store chains in the country, only 1 sells cats and dogs.
So, from what you were just saying,
yes.
Let me rephrase what you just told me in the way I interpreted it. You correct me when I'm wrong. So you support the big box businesses, the PetSmarts and stuff like that. You support internet sales, but you're not supporting mom and pop operations because they're puppy mills. Is that what you're telling me?
No. Well,
that's the way I interpreted what you told me. So
the small businesses, of the 30 or so pet stores that still exist in New Jersey, in towns where these ordinances have passed, where there is currently a mom and pop pet store, or even Pets Plus Natural, which is a mid-sized chain, there's one in Lawrenceville, there's one in Delran, they've converted to a humane model voluntarily with the HSUS. So Pets Plus Natural is a mid-sized chain that has voluntarily said, we are not going to source from puppy mills, because they recognize it's a dying business model. Consumers are growing aware of that. and they've partnered with HSUS to source from shelters and rescues.
But what about the mom and pop stores?
The mom and
If I were a
pops-
mom and pop store listening to what you said, I'd be pretty offended.
Well, the mom and pop stores are actually also working with us to do the same. In Washington Township in Gloucester County, they pass an ordinance such as this, and it was more difficult for towns like that because they've got an existing pet store in their town. So they passed the ordinance, and they're giving that store 4 months to either convert to a humane model, which is sourcing from shelters and rescues, or choosing to do a products and services based model, grooming, products, things like that, or shut down. So being that there isn't a pet store, and correct me if I'm wrong, a pet store currently in Pemberton, this is more of a proactive measure that prevents this type of problem, but it doesn't affect your responsible breeder who has a couple litters in the person's backyard who wants to sell them. Doesn't affect that person. So if mom and pop shops are doing the wrong thing, sourcing from puppy mills, we're absolutely against it because they're pawning off cruel, inhumane treatment of these animals onto unsuspecting consumers. If they're a small mom and pop shop that's doing the right thing, like in Camden and Waretown, where Pat Human has converted as well. He's a mom and pop store. He's converted. He's adopted out 1,000 puppies now in a humane model. So we're seeing on a small business level, a mid-range level, and then a big box store like Petco and PetSmart, they're all starting to adopt this humane model of shelter and rescue base because it's a win-win-win for everyone. You know, a consumer is helping a store make money and stay in business. A store is helping a shelter animal prevent being euthanized and finding a forever home. A business feels that they're doing the right thing by the consumer and by themselves. So it's really a win-win-win for everybody that we see being willing to do it. Those that are resisting are the pet stores that are the current bad actors who are sourcing from these puppy mills, and they're some of the vociferous people against the state law. But if you look at the investigative report and you look at where they're sourcing, we can understand why.
I don't have any more questions.
I don't have any questions for Brian. I have a question for council. The word, like he kept saying, responsible breeder, I don't know. If I'm unresponsible, I'm not going to come here, you know, and say that I am responsible. Like everybody's definition in their mind of being responsible is different. So my question is that something we should put in this ordinance to protect ourselves, protect the puppies later, or, you know,
I like the
just
way
let it
Andy
go?
put it in there as a hobby breeder to kind of have that option.
As an exclusion, you mean?
No, it's in there where if you're a hobby breeder, I think it's on the second page. Or maybe I'm wrong, Andy, I'm sorry.
I don't remember that.
I thought I saw it.
I think the ordinance, I think what you're talking about is excellent. I believe in what you're saying. I just want to make sure that someone doesn't come up later and say, well, how, you know, especially with that term responsible breeder, that just keeps sticking out in my head. I understand your
Right.
definition, I really do, but
And I certainly, being a former councilman myself in my town, I certainly understand where you all are coming from with this. And even having a hobby breeder exception, I'm not sure it's even necessary or germane because
okay.
the crux of this ordinance is at physical pet store locations.
Okay.
And so if someone wants to open up a physical pet store location
Okay.
in your town, which is, as I said, from a business model perspective, it's probably unlikely. But if they want to, then your town would be saying to them, if you want to open up a pet store location in this strip mall and you want to sell animals here, you've got to source them from shelters and rescues. Now, a responsible breeder, and I understand, you know, there's many responsible, and again, if you go to the HSUS website, we discuss responsible breeders. We have a responsible breeders council. We support them. They're not affected by this because their business model doesn't even pertain to the ordinance.
Got it.
A responsible breeder will be doing a different way of selling and conducting business. So if they are affected by this, they've got to be a pet store.
Okay. All right.
The definition of a responsible breeder is the Humane Society's definition of a responsible breeder.
Well, we give informational guidelines to consumers to protect them in terms of if you're looking to purchase an animal because you've chosen not to go the shelter or rescue route, here are some red flags to look for to protect yourself and your investment in that new pet, which is if someone doesn't want you to come to their operation, red flag. If you say, well, I'd like to see the breeding mom and dad of this litter, of these puppies, and they say, oh, well, maybe not today, maybe tomorrow, maybe another, red flag. So there are parameters and there's guidelines for you as a consumer to keep in mind that the HSUS publicizes, that if you're going to purchase a dog, make sure it's not from a puppy mill. And don't let it be from a pet store, because pet stores, as we show in our investigative report, source from these puppy mills. So if we've never had a responsible breeder stand up and say, we sell our dogs to pet stores, or we sell through pet stores. If they do, they're not conducting a responsible business model that pertains to the way the dog clubs would do, the way responsible breeders would do. It's a different business model.
Andy, the next last whereas on the first page has something in there about the hobby.
Last sentence.
I knew I saw it in there.
Yep. Yes.
What, if I may ask, what is the language for the hobby breeders that's
Well,
currently?
no, I'm not sure if this is from your form or if we changed this, but
I think we changed it because of
This-
Ken and I asking questions about
this
it.
ordinance will not affect, it's just a whereas clause, but will not affect a consumer's ability to obtain a dog or cat of his or her choice directly from a breed-specific rescue organization or a shelter, or from a hobby breeder, where the consumer can see directly the conditions in which the dogs or cats are bred, or can confer directly with the hobby breeder concerning those conditions.
And that's precisely a face-to-face sale.
Yeah, that's what you were talking about.
Right. So we prefer to use the face-to-face sale language instead of the hobby breeder language, because sometimes pet stores try to use that as a loophole. They also use the kennel definition as a loophole.
Well, that's only in a whereas clause, though.
Right.
It's not in the now, therefore, that, I mean, at least the draft in its current form is just your form.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I mean, I think, as I said, the concern here was not to impact the small breeder, local businesses, not who's a pet store, but that, just to sort of, I think that was the concern.
Legitimate breeders.
Yes. Yeah. Responsible, legitimate.
And quite
Not
honestly,
responsible, legitimate breeders.
and quite honestly, we would prefer that New Jersey consumers look at the list of the responsible breeders that I think everybody, the consensus is, are legitimate, responsible people, instead of going to a pet store and getting a dog from a puppy mill. So, you know, while our first go-to is an adopt, don't shop model to cut down the 21,000 animals in our state that are euthanized, we understand that a consumer has a choice. And if they want to choose to purchase an animal, then there are hundreds of these legitimate, responsible breeders in the state that would never be touched or affected by this type of ordinance. It is physically the pet store locations to prevent them from coming into your town and then vanning and bus loading puppy mill dogs in from Missouri, and then your residents purchase sick or injured or abused animals, and they're dropping them off at the Burlington County shelter because they spent thousands of dollars and can't get it rehabbed, and it's euthanized anyway.
I thank you for all your information. Opened my eyes to a lot of things. I think that's all the questions that I have.
And I really do thank you for your thoughts and your considerations. I understand it's an issue that raises some eyebrows at first, but I really do appreciate your consideration. It is really a win-win-win. It's a win for consumers. It's a win for taxpayers. It's certainly a win for animals, because for every town that passes an ordinance like this, it's one less place where a commercial puppy mill breeder doing the wrong thing by animals and the wrong thing by consumers can sell their, unfortunately, products. So, and they're living sentient beings, by the way. So,
Thank you.
thank you all.
Ken,
you, Brian.
Ken, do you have any additional questions or covered? Okay. Thank you for your time, Mr. Haggett.
Yes, thank you very much.
Council, how would we like to proceed with this ordinance?
I have no problem with proceeding with the ordinance, and he made the comment, USDA approved breeders. Add that language in there, and I have no problem moving forward.
You're saying what, Ken? Exempting? What am I sure you're saying?
Or along with the rescue shelters and,
Under the definition?
yes, that are approved to be sold through puppy stores. Or animal stores, I should say, rather.
You're saying add USDA
Approved breeders.
approved breeders.
Approve responsible legitimate breeders. No, I'm just kidding.
My suggestion, at least, is
Okay.
I mean, substantively, that's fine. Why don't I also just get for you I'd like to check the bill out that's referenced. I wasn't aware of this.
Okay.
And then even these definitions from the HSUS, and then
Well, yeah, we're definitely going to need a clean copy of that anyway.
Yeah, and then with that, and then I could add this concept as well as a draft.
Can I clarify one thing?
Yeah, I've given up.
Uh,
You need to get elected here.
Yes, no, I was a councilman once, and I had to resign to take this position, so, just to give some clarification about USDA breeders, there's roughly about 10,000 puppy mills in the United States. Of those, only 2,000 are actually licensed with the USDA. So the quick rundown of why the 8,000 are not licensed is because they don't want to be known. They just want unsuspecting consumers to show up or sell to pet stores and not be known. Of the 2,000 that are licensed with the USDA, over 400 of them have been documented with USDA inspections of egregious direct or indirect violations, whether it's euthanasia by gunshot to the head, it's sick, abused, injured, there's some type of health or sanitary or treatment violation of these dogs. So there's roughly 1,600 commercial breeders that we call puppy mills, but commercial breeders in the country that the state law would allow pet stores to source from. So the pet stores could source from these 1,600. However, the USDA licensing is a bare standard minimum. Just because a commercial breeder is licensed with the USDA, it doesn't mean they're perfect. What it means is that the USDA did not have enough manpower or funding to have enough inspections to find the violations in those. So
The federal government doesn't do its job. I can't believe that.
So I just want to clarify that, you know, the state is using the USDA as a bare minimum standard in terms of, well, we have to have some type of standard, so this is the standard that's going to be used. But pet stores, you know, with an ordinance like this, the ordinance is saying no retail sale of cats or dogs in pet stores because...
Well, you're asking for a more stringent standard than the state standard, in essence.
Well, the state is using the USDA standard, and the state is not going to close down pet stores. The state is just expanding the Pet Purchase Protection Act to say it's not just about disclosure now, it's about sourcing. If you are improperly sourcing these animals from breeders with violations, 3 strikes and you're out. You lose your license. But the bill encourages local towns, because of New Jersey's tradition of home rule, it encourages local towns to take a step further to say, if our town is making the value judgment that we don't want this type of puppy mill cruelty in our town, we want to support and prop up responsible breeders, and we want to support and prop up rescues and shelters, then this is the type of ordinance that you'd pass to say, no pet store can sell cats or dogs in our town. And that's the crux of it. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Andy, so you will get us something for the next meeting?
You bet.
Okay. New business, purchases over 2,000. A1, Recreation and Senior Services, purchase of materials to construct parking lot guard rail fences at Bayberry Park from Diamond M Lumber Company in the total amount of $3,492. I requested that this be pulled. Just a quick question, will Public Works be installing the fencing? That's the only question I had. Is there...
Why don't you run through all four of them? We just approve them all at the same
okay.
time,
That works.
if everybody's okay with that.
I am.
Yeah.
Well, I actually have a question on 3.
Yeah, so.
Okay, we could do, so for number 2, community development, purchase of desktop upgrades for inspection office from Look First Technology in the amount of $6,910.40. Why are these upgrades needed?
The computers that our folks have in community development are very old, and the software is no longer supported, and it's been a long time. They require an upgrade. There are 6 computers there. One of them has previously been upgraded, and the other 5 need to be upgraded.
Okay. The next one, Public Works, purchase of a tree removal service from Reynolds and Sons Tree Service in the amount of $11,700. On the request for purchase, it mentions just cutting down the tree tops. Are we cutting down the tree tops or removing the trees?
Well, we're actually doing both. The service is to cut off the tree tops because we don't have the equipment to get to the tall trees, and then our Public Works folks will come in with our equipment and take care of the rest of the tree and the stumps. The idea is to get as many of the tall trees that we don't have access to down as quickly as possible. The council has previously authorized a contract with Nelson Tree Service, but they have been very unresponsive to the point of not doing the work. So this is not new money that we're spending. We're actually unencumbering that money and canceling that contract to go with this company who has agreed which has agreed to do the work.
Will there be a cancellation fee?
There's no cancellation fee.
Sometimes there is.
Yeah.
And
We will think about them next time we put something out, though.
Well, I was kind of, that was a good question, because if you cut the tree down to 20 feet tall, they're going to die. So that's what I was thinking too.
Okay, and number 4, Police Department, purchase of 3 computers from Dell in the amount of $2,980.11. Are these additional computers or replacements?
These are also replacements for the same reasons, and as indicated before as to code enforcement. We have an opportunity, given where we are with expenditures for the year, to do some computer replacements now.
Okay.
Why wouldn't we do the same equipment across the board? Why is one getting Lenovo and the other one's getting Dell?
The police department was interested in the Dells for certain types of functionality, and we did have our same information technology folks taking a look at both of them, and they thought it was an acceptable choice.
If there are no other discussion or questions, is there a motion to approve new business purchases over $2,000, A, number 1 through 4?
So moved.
Second.
Amy, please poll the council.
Mr. Cordier?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Tompkins?
Yes.
Ms. Trueblood?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Number 5, water, purchase of radioactive material license for well number 11 from the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection in the amount of $2,550. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
I second the motion to approve.
Amy, please poll the council.
Mr. Cordier?
Yes.
Ms. Trueblood?
Yes.
Mr. Tompkins?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Abstain. Engineers report. Are there any topics that council would like to discuss from the report?
No.
Hearing none.
Not from the report, but there is an issue. Juliustown Road, right at, I guess right where it becomes Broadway, that intersection there by Zevia. If you're going up Juliustown Road, Burger King's on your right. As you go over, there's a sinkhole or something developing right there on the Burger King side. I mean, I hit it with my truck and it jarred my molars. So I don't know if that us or the county or what.
I'll have Public Works contact the county and see if they can figure out what's going on there. Didn't we have a water leak there a couple months ago?
That was it.
Is that all?
Yep.
Okay. Bill list, September 16th, 2016. Is there a motion to approve the bill list?
A motion to approve the bill list for September 16, 2016.
Is there a second?
Second.
Amy, please poll the council.
Mrs. Trueblood?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Tompkins?
Yes.
Mr. Portier?
Yes, with the exception of the fire department bills listed on page 6.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Solicitors report.
I would like to report that Judge Bookbinder approved our affordable housing plan and spending plan for affordable housing trust monies at a hearing last week. There are a couple of contingencies. There'll be one item coming before you probably at the next meeting, but it went well, and you'll have a judgment of repose, meaning you can't get sued by builders looking to build development that you don't want to build, that you don't want to have happen. So we got that, so it was successful, so I just want everyone to know that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Administration.
Now, we have nothing.
Council comment. Jack, you want to start?
I don't have anything.
No comments. Ms. Jackson.
Just want to thank everyone for coming out this evening, and see everyone at the next meeting.
Mr. Cartier.
I just have a question. I noticed that the old lumber company, there's a under contract sign up out there. What's going on there?
There is a company that has come in for some preliminary talks, discussions on what they could put there. They are proposing a Dollar General for that site.
Really?
Really?
They were instructed that we do have a architectural standard in place with our form-based coding that they might want to take a look at and come back with a plan that meets our code.
Another Dollar General? Well, no.
Permitted use, but again, that's why we pass these codes so that we can protect any new development coming in to meet a certain standard so that we can enjoy our quality of life.
We don't even
It would be
hire
a
enough
good-looking Dollar General store.
people. Oh,
It'll be a
another
unique
one.
and probably one of a kind if they meet our standard.
Jeez.
Yeah.
We don't want that. They don't
That was
even
it.
give
Thing else,
jobs.
Ms. Trueblood, glad to have you back.
Thank you. It's good to be back. I read in the minutes from the last meeting, and I know you asked Letha about does the township get to know when stores are leaving, and I was reading that. And while I know in my running and going around just day to day, everyone was so upset about the shoe department. That's all I kept hearing. Oh my God, what is this town doing to us? And I went into hair places and department stores, and that's all you could hear everyone talking about. I did not say a word. After a while, I just left. But because I mean, how much more can you say? But I noticed they are
there's a new shop in there, and they're in there working on it now. It's a sports store, and a lot of people are putting bets on how long is it going to really be profitable. Yeah. So it was enjoyable reading the minutes and that question, because that's what the question I have for. It's just been ongoing with these stores and outbidding each other, and that's all you hear. So a lot of people, residents, were upset, feeling that no one took into the consideration this is where they go to get shoes and good prices, sneakers, and now they have to go to the Jackson outlet, or they have to, so.
Well, now you can tell them it wasn't the township that
Right.
closed them.
Oh yeah, they know that. No, they were just, I did relay a lot of that,
To
but.
keep businesses open, we have to support the
Support.
businesses.
Yep, so. That's all, so thank you.
That's all? Okay. Thank you all for coming out. God bless and good night.
Good night.
Motion to adjourn.